We're joined now by Ric Grenell, our Senior Advisor for National Security and Foreign Policy. And Ric, I wanted to go to this right away. You just shared this with our producer, Will, before you were on, about it's a new report, actually. This was from NBC News. And it's an interesting, just the headline is that former U.S. officials are holding a secret Ukraine talks with prominent Russians to try and get to a potential negotiated end to the war, which is interesting that these U.S. officials believe that the Biden administration is not doing their job in that fact and that they need to step up and do it.
Yeah, look, this is a group of individuals from the Council on Foreign Relations, which is a very old NGO in Washington, very typical of Washington, D.C. Their foreign policy tends to be very neocon pro-war. And it was interesting that they traveled to New York City in April, and that was the month that the Russians were the president of the Security Council. So the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, happened to be in New York for that UN Security Council meeting, and they sat with him, and now they're leaking out that in that April meeting, they did discuss some issues surrounding a peace deal. I think there's a couple of things that we can say. One, if it's coming from the Council on Foreign Relations, it's not going to be serious. It's going to be a fundraising effort. Two, I would say they clearly failed because since April, we've seen more fighting, and we've seen the Wagner group really flex its muscle. And so this is an outside group, not the Biden administration, that maybe tried, maybe just had a meeting. But at the end of the day, we still need to put pressure on the Biden team, the State Department, Anthony Blinken. They need to be able to have some serious talks. The Chinese shouldn't be the only ones pushing a peace plan.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, this is not a group that usually is trying to push for an end to conflict. But instead, especially kind of aggressive and the statements they usually make. And I think people know they're very weary of the Council on Foreign Relations. At the same time, it is unique that they thought that they needed to step in to possibly try to do something, maybe to benefit the Biden administration, honestly, because they saw things as getting out of control with no end in sight as well. But you do mention, Ric, this idea too. I mean, we were talking about these documents we've uncovered when we filed our FOIA back on the Afghan withdrawal. So it was filed with DOD, State, and CENTCOM. And the initial documents we're getting back, some were classified at the time, are about how focused they were on removing hazardous waste from Bagram Air Force Base. So far, no documents on getting our troops out safely or our allies.
Look, this is the perfect example of why ACLJ matters. You look at an organization like the Council on Foreign Relations, the head, Richard Haas, is an MSNBC talking head. He's constantly on MSNBC bashing Republicans. But this is an organization that should be petitioning the government to get documents, to hold them to account so that the American public has transparency. They're not doing it, but ACLJ is. And thank God this trove of information that we just got really puts the light on the Afghanistan withdrawal. What were they concentrating on? And it looks like, at least in this phase, the Biden administration was more concerned about environmental mitigation than getting our equipment out and making sure that the terrorists didn't maintain control of American taxpayer-funded equipment, deadly equipment that could be used against us. They were more concerned about the environmental hazards than they were about terrorists getting a hold of hard equipment. So this is a failure. Thank God the ACLJ team kept on it. We didn't give up. And I hope people understand in this monthly challenge that we're having right now, these are the types of issues that we can run to ground, that we can keep pushing on if we have your support. This can't be a PR-driven exercise. It needs lawyers who dig deep, who go to court if they have to. But this process is expensive, but look what we're finding out. We haven't given up on the Afghanistan withdrawal because this matters. It has implications for how our government moves forward.
Yeah, I mean, we got this one document, which we probably need some more context on because it doesn't have a lot of dates, but we know it's from July 2021. It was also a secret document, so it's been declassified through our FOIA. and it was the assessment over the Taliban's path to Kabul. So we know that was something that was greatly undercounted of how fast they would move on Kabul. This one is about more that they would kind of isolate Kabul and then ultimately would control the roads in, but not necessarily in 2 or 3 days like what happened during the withdrawal. So we've got 200 documents that we're going through right now as we speak. We just got them this morning. So this is just like Rick said, the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
so
we would prep to do a completely different show.
Yeah, we will stay on it. I do wanted to go, Rick, also to what's happening with Iran. We saw, again, this attempt to seize 2 vessels and the U.S. military having to get involved, which is, again, always right on the edge of conflict, it seems.
Look, one of the lessons that we're going to learn from this latest document dump that we were able to get because we stayed on it is the idea that the Biden team has white papers and plans like academics, and they really don't know how to adjust when the real world comes crashing down on their white paper plans. And this document shows, look, they had a plan that didn't go well, that didn't go as the academics back in Washington, D.C. thought it would. And we need to be able to have real-time, real-world adjustments. And that's not what happened in the Afghanistan withdrawal. That has incredible implications for what we see in the Straits of Hormuz with the Iranians, where they seize ships. They go in and they bully, and this is their tactics. We need to be able to have real world adjustments to real world facts. And that's my criticism of the Biden team. Too many academics, too many professor types that write white papers back in Washington and really don't know how the real world works.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they on this, even on the hazardous waste, the attention to detail was so intense, and yet you can imagine that this is what they are giving to us, Rick, when we said, okay, we were looking for the plans leading up to, the discussions leading up to withdrawal of Afghanistan, and this is the kind of information they're saying. This was the important stuff. Hazardous waste cleanup, which no discussion, by the way, over the military equipment we were leaving behind, but this discussion over, can the Afghan National EPA work with us? And no, they can't. They don't have the technology to do that. Yeah, I mean, like that was where the focus should be, instead of the fact that the Taliban was breathing down the neck and other groups like ISIS-K were coming back. And ultimately, we know that this wasn't just an idea that things were going to get bad. Things got bad, and 13 Americans got killed. And we believe, at the ACLJ, especially during a time when people are going to start voting again, this is one we can't forget. This is one we have to remind people, and also kind of, if there are debates, and whatever those debates look like, that people are asking Joe Biden about it.
What it looks like is that the government's response to our question of what was your planning strategy for the Afghanistan withdrawal, it looks like the answer is we did a lot of environmental planning. And that in and of itself shows just the lack of preparation, and really, once again, this kind of woke ideology going into the Department of Defense and missing the big stuff because they're concentrating on these tangential issues.
Yeah. Rick, as always, we appreciate all of your commentary, your insight as well. We're going to follow this very closely. We got over 200 pages of these documents.